Hey, Carlos Garcia here with Eng Garcia Properties. Thanks for coming back to our video blog. Just wanted to talk a little bit about competing in a competitive market. As a buyer these days, especially here in Washington, D.C., where the tables are turning and sellers have more and more leverage and inventory is low, it's very, very important to know how to compete to win in multiple offer situations. And it's really important when you really love the property, of course. So that's one of the first things that I talk to my clients about when thinking about competing, is really determining how badly they want the property, how important it is to the client to end up with the property in question. Because sometimes the fact is it's not that important and the client feels, you know what, I could take it or leave it, or I could move on, I wouldn't be crushed if I didn't get this property. There are some cases, however, where you really love a property and you want to know what will it take, within reason, to win. So first of all, that's the attitude you've got to have. It's about winning. If that's the outcome you want, then, well, that's the only outcome you want. And so you have to figure out how to win in a competitive situation. One of the things that we talk about is thinking about the internal environment and the external environment. The external environment is what's been going down in the marketplace, what's a reasonable price to pay, what perhaps is a premium worth paying on a property based on what's happening in the marketplace. The internal environment, well, there are really two internal environments. One is the environment as according to the seller. What's the seller's motivation? Of course, the other I sort of alluded to earlier, which is the environment according to the buyer. What are they feeling? How important is it to the buyer to get the particular property in question? Maybe at that moment, based on other things also going on in one's life. Sometimes, if I could just get this property search concluded in this month, it would really make my year because of other things I've got going on in my personal and professional life. As to the environment from the seller's perspective, well, that's where a real good realtor can help you sort of get a leg up on the competition. One of the things that I do is I have frequent small communications with the listing agent. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get little bits and pieces of intelligence. I'm trying to also establish a relationship if I don't know the agent, or if I know the agent, rapport in the context of this particular negotiation. Day by day, over a course of days, if I know there's a deadline, I'm going to be checking in with that agent. Maybe wearing that agent down a little bit, maybe getting through, maybe appealing to that agent as someone who's earnest, hardworking, asking the right questions, and will be a good person with whom to be under contract. I want them to think that about my clients, and I want them to think that about our enterprise as we look to engage with the seller. So that's really, really very critical, because that intelligence gathering phase can sometimes make the difference between offering just enough to win, offering hopefully not too much, because sometimes, of course, a major concern when competing is whether you've overdone it, whether you've done more than you needed to do to win. The process is clearly not very transparent, and that's why this is an interesting topic, is because you're really trying to piece together connect all the dots, let's say, and piece together what you do and what you don't know and try to come up with a reasonable approach. Then within the contract offer itself, there are some things that you can do, beginning with limiting your contingencies. Here in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, a very powerful contingency for a buyer is the home inspection contingency. And one of the reasons is that, unlike other jurisdictions, here in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, the buyer has the right absolutely just to walk for no reason at all. Any reason or no reason at the buyer's discretion. And this is a very powerful right, and it's one that the seller wishes to limit. And in a competitive situation, while the buyer might not like to have that right limited, that may be a very good thing to do in order to win. And one way to do it is to be able to walk in knowing the property very well, with eyes wide open, having inspected it before making an offer. So a pre-offer inspection is it's a really good move, because you can perhaps then enter the offer stage with no contingency, having inspected the property and knowing full well, its shortcomings, because no property is perfect. It will have some problems, and if you're willing to accept them and move forward and say, you know what, I'm not going to make an issue out of any of them, well, that can give a seller a lot of peace of mind. But that's a really big move for a buyer to do. I mean, you've got to spend time and money on a property. You might spend 3-4 hours at the property. You might spend $500 or $800 on the inspection without even knowing if you have a contract. On the one hand, that's a big risk to take. On the other, it's a real sign of your love for the property. And every wise seller knows that it's not just dollars and cents, but also how badly a person wants the property, so that you can know that the person who you're going to sell the property to, with whom you're going to be under contract, is actually going to hang in there, and if there are bumps along the way, overcome them, see it through to closing. That's a very important part of the psyche of a seller, is that the buyer truly wants it and that they can ascertain that. Well, what better way to indicate your love for a property than to go out there on a limb, spend time and money investigating it without even knowing that you've got a contract. It's a very, very powerful way to compete, and probably one of the most powerful ways in this context right now. Of course, amping up your down payment, if that's possible, is another way to do it. And once again, sort of returning back to the intel that you've been collecting along the way, understanding what are the hot buttons that you might want to push that might really resonate for the seller. There could be timing issues. The seller could be looking for a home to purchase of his or her own after the sale, perhaps providing some flexibility with regard to timing, or a rent back where you agree to rent the property back to the seller so that the seller can have a period of time within which to look for a home to purchase already with the funds from the closing from when they sold the house to you. Those are some tips that you should consider, and it is a competitive marketplace, and it's important to have an agent who knows how to ride this process all the way through to a victory if you want the property bad enough. That's pretty much the highlights that I've got to offer when it comes to competing in this competitive marketplace. I'd like you to check out the article below for some more details and information, and please feel free to contact us. We're at info@enggarcia.com or 202-290-1313. 290-1313. Once again, thanks for visiting our video blog. Cheers.